The wind carried a strange quiet across the valley that evening, the kind that makes a lone man stop mid-step and scan the horizon the way Luke Carver did as he returned to his cabin after a long day of riding fence. But before he could even set down his saddlebag, he saw two figures stumbling toward him, two young Apache women, one leaning heavily against the other, both clinging to life with the last threads of strength left in their bones. The elder sister, breathless and trembling, raised her hand not in threat but in desperate plea, whispering her name, Aaliyah, and then motioning to the younger girl, Tallulah, whose face was flushed with fever and whose legs nearly buckled beneath her. Luke didn't ask questions, because the desert had a cruel way of telling its own story, one of escape, fear, and danger that chased these women right into his yard. He holstered his gun, stepped forward slowly, and caught Tallulah just before she collapsed. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled with a warmth that neither sister had felt in days, and Luke poured water into their shaking hands, watching as they drank like they hadn't tasted comfort in a lifetime. Aaliyah tried to refuse his bed when he insisted they take it, speaking in broken English, saying, "We cannot. We dishonor your home." But Luke shook his head firmly and said, "Honor is giving what someone needs more than you." Tallulah was burning up, her skin hot as coals from riding for miles with no sleep, no food, no protection except her sister's will to keep her alive. So Luke laid her down gently, mixing herbs the old mountain doctor had taught him to use long ago, placing a damp cloth on her forehead while Aaliyah watched with cautious, weary eyes. As night settled heavy and thick around the cabin, Luke sat by the door with his rifle across his knees, keeping watch, not out of fear of the sisters, but out of fear of whoever or whatever had chased them this far into the wilderness. Somewhere deep in the night, Tallulah's fever broke, and Aaliyah leaned down, whispering a prayer of relief before her. Exhaustion overcame her, and she finally slept. Dawn came quietly, almost shyly, painting soft gold across the land, but that peace shattered like glass when the ground began to tremble. Beneath hundreds of pounding hooves, Luke stood gripping his rifle, heart tightening in his chest as he stepped outside to see a sight few men lived long enough to describe: an entire Apache war party, more than 150 warriors thundering across the valley in a wave of color, feathers, and fury, led by a towering man whose presence alone made the earth seem to bow beneath him. He was Taza, father of the two sisters, war leader of a proud and feared band, and the moment his eyes locked on Luke standing alone outside his cabin, the warriors instantly raised their spears and rifles, ready to spill blood for even the slightest offense. Luke didn't move, didn't twitch, didn't even blink, because running from a man like Taza would have been an insult greater than death. Just then, Aaliyah burst from the cabin, shouting in Apache, her voice cracking as she told her father everything: how Luke sheltered them, fed them, defended them when they were too weak to protect themselves. Taza dismounted with the gravity of a storm, studying Luke with the cold, searching eyes of a father who had almost lost both daughters in one night. Then, in a moment that felt heavier than the mountains, Taza lowered his spear, and every warrior behind him followed. Luke released a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding, though he sensed immediately that this wasn't the end of his involvement. It was the beginning. For Aaliyah and Tallulah had fled from men far more dangerous than wolves or desert outlaws, and Taza, now indebted to Luke by honor and fatherhood, had brought not just gratitude but a war on the horizon that would drag Luke Carver into a fight where alliances, blood, and destiny would clash in ways he never imagined. And as the sun rose higher, lighting the ridges like burning copper, Luke realized he had opened his door not just to two exhausted strangers, but to a story so fierce and unforgiving that the West itself would remember it. And if you're ready for the rest of this unstoppable tale, make sure you subscribe. Chapter 2 will take you deeper into the fire than ever before.